I've spent the last 30 years or so starting and backing businesses and partnering with entrepreneurs, and I have complete confidence that they are the solution to the challenges that confront us. Human ingenuity, the profit motive, technology advances and collaboration have always been the engine that drives progress, and once more I think that combination of factors is leading this recovery. But the one thing I think entrepreneurs do not take, and that's orders. Central planning in general does not lead to growth and innovation in a capitalist system, and instead I think expansion derives from thousands of individuals working independently who start new enterprises and invent new products and services that generate jobs and wealth. And research shows that the majority of new jobs and breakthroughs come from such sources. But you cannot dictate to such diverse and willful types. You can nurture them, you can advise them, you can cheer them, you can foster role models, but you cannot insist that they invest in such and such an industry or run their business in such and such a way. That is not how the free enterprise system works. To unleash the entrepreneurial spirit, you need to give citizens freedom to easily create new undertakings, allow them to take risks, allow them to fail, and provide the economic and legal conditions that permit such fledgling firms to flourish. And I have to say, overall, I'm greatly encouraged. I see many signs that we are heading in the right direction. I give talks to a lot of younger people at schools, universities, and business schools, and I see an entrepreneurial generation like never before. There are over 70, for example, thriving entrepreneur societies in universities across the UK with over 50,000 members between them, including the Oxford Entrepreneur Society, the largest of its kind in the world. A thing like that absolutely didn't exist when I was there 30 years ago. And the tragedy of high levels of youth unemployment has an upside, I think, which is that I believe many, many thousands more graduates will start companies, and some of them will succeed, and perhaps a few of them will become huge. Now, when I meet these groups of young enterprising 20-somethings planning to work for themselves, another remarkable thing is that many of them are women, often a third of them women. I believe that in 5, 10, and 20 years' time, we will have more female entrepreneurs in this country than ever before in our history. I also see a huge number of talented and hungry youngsters from abroad or from ethnic minorities who will start businesses here. The brain power and effort, all of this is incremental. And as we know, capitalism is not a zero-sum affair. The more entrepreneurs there are, the more opportunities they generate, and that is how the virtuous circle of improvement happens. I also think the digital revolution is having a profound effect on the ability of would-be entrepreneurs to get started. The online universe helps them to find ideas, to meet partners, to raise capital, to market their goods to the world, and to test new projects quickly and cheaply, and find out what works much more easily. Now, many of the more exciting industries of the future are ones where actually Britain is surprisingly strong or has advantages, such as healthcare, pharmaceuticals and bioscience, media and entertainment, tourism, hospitality, leisure and travel, specialist technology and specialist niche manufacture, energy services, professional services and finance, and education, to name but just a few. The rise of Asia, Latin America and Africa gives us scope to grow across all of these categories and more, both through export and supplying services to visitors who come here. These sectors and others will, I hope and believe, spearhead our revival and reinvention. Of course, we need an educated and motivated workforce, and the education system here is far from perfect. But again, I see positive signs. I chair the Royal Society of Arts, and we sponsor a family of academies. I've seen the rapid results that such institutions can achieve firsthand. With sound leadership, once schools are removed from the deathly clutches of local education authorities and self-serving unions. I hope that in the coming few years, many thousands of schools will become more independent and deliver better teaching. And universities too will face a reckoning. They will be forced to supply more practical degrees and graduates better qualified for the real world of work, and this can only be a good thing. Now, government can help. It can lower regulation and legislation in areas like planning, health and safety, and in particular employment law. I see signals that the coalition are at last listening to employers and may produce changes which will enable bosses to hire and fire once more. And that initiative alone, as Neil said, I think will stimulate jobs and business creation. Similarly, if the state rolls back national insurance and other taxes on jobs, that will act as a further spur. And perhaps new companies can even be exempted from things like property rates and other painful taxes. And I applaud other actions this government are taking. The reintroduction of the Enterprise Allowance Scheme, the expansion of the Loan Guarantee Scheme, the sponsorship of Startup Britain and so forth. We could do with more patient capital overall, more angel investing, and more technology jobs. But the state is probably not the source of these, but at least it can offer the right tax breaks to induce investors to back early stage ventures. Now, although the coalition is doing some good stuff, certain of their plans are terrible. The government should halt its fatuous idea of cutting greenhouse emissions by 50% by 2025. If we want manufacturing to remain in this country, we need to rethink such politically correct posturing. It will only force investment and jobs elsewhere for certain. And despite their promises to cut red tape, this lot have actually brought in bad new rules on additional paternity leave, the scrapping of retirement ages, and compulsory new pension laws, hardly helpful to small business, already struggling under a vast administrative burden. But ultimately, Britain's prospects are in our own hands, not the government's. We control our own destiny. We must play to our strengths and apply ourselves. Everyone who has the experience should be mentoring someone. Everyone who really cares about Britain should be placing their bets here. I don't have time for cynicism or pessimism. The future has always belonged to the optimists and heroes who dare to take the plunge in life. No one remembers those who said, it's too high risk or it'll never work. The armchair skeptics who are the first to criticise and the last to volunteer. Now, I'm not an economist nor a historian, but a mere practitioner of capitalism, so my perspective is not based on vast research, but rather direct observation and participation. My decades in commerce have taught me that business is cyclical, and my intelligence from the front line tells me that right now we are firmly in the upswing. There is still a lot of noise out there to clutter the feedback, but no doubt plenty of difficulties and reverses to overcome. But in my career, having had plenty of setbacks, made an awful lot of mistakes, and owned companies that have suffered near-death experiences and recovered, I think, generally speaking, that unless you've lost a limb and your house is on fire, I know that such things are mere inconveniences. There is something unstoppable, something perhaps even transcendent about having an idea and making it into a real, live undertaking. If we liberate more of those animal spirits amongst our citizens, there is no limit to what can be achieved. The unceasing tide of innovation, industry, and resourcefulness that characterizes mankind will, as it always does, lead to higher standards of living in the years to come. So my short answer to the question, where will growth come from, is straightforward: more entrepreneurs.